Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back, dear listeners and viewers. We are now going to a segment where we unpack Palestinian women's plight and also why there has been such a relative silence on the part of Western liberal feminists, but thankfully a lot of solidarity on the part of feminists and women's organizations in the global south. And to help us unpack this, I have two very special guests in studio with me. Lesleyann Foster, who is the founder of Masimanyane Women's Rights International, and Ohaila Shomar, human rights activist and general director at Sawa. Both of them have much longer CVs, but I think that suffices for an introduction. So welcome to Salam Media to you both, Lesleyann, who is here in South Africa, and Ohaila, who is from Ramallah but currently in Greece.
Good
Welcome
day.
and good
Thank you
morning.
for having us. Thank you so much, and thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. It's lovely to have you both in studio. Please, can we kick off with you, Lesleyann? Can you set the scene for us a little bit in terms of what your activism has been with regards to Palestinian women in particular, and perhaps even now in the last 6 months, Gazan women in specific?
Yes. Well, in the last 6 months, we've held the only and biggest march in East London, which was very, very well supported. And interesting about it was that the government supported the march. The Premier came and led the march himself. But all the organizing and mobilizing was done by Masimanyane and a cohort of activists, Farida Maiber in particular, and Sikandar Kupu were the main organizers, and they did a really, really marvelous job. We then handed over a memorandum of understanding to the Premier with the demands, which were very powerful, asking for support from the provincial government, asking the provincial government to demand that our province be declared an apartheid-free province was one of them. And then talking about, calling for a stop to the genocide because women and children were bearing the brunt of it. Since then, we've had a decoloniality symposium where we developed a declaration on the genocide, calling for an end to that, and again for the protection of women and children, the securing of the human rights. Since then, we also had a panel at the Commission on the Status of Women in New York, where the Palestinian question was, particularly the issue around women, was seriously, debated with other countries, as it were. And we had Ohaila as one of the guest speakers, which was really powerful. We had another guest speaker from Palestine who could share, the struggles that women are having there. But we have shown our solidarity 100% to the Palestinian question and the genocide in particular, in spite of several of our donors trying to impose a gag rule on us as organizations. And what we've said is that we won't use their money in particular for activism on Palestine, but we will find other sources of funding to go ahead with the protests. Yeah, we're not just showing solidarity, we're really out there, very clearly saying the genocide is unacceptable. We are concerned about the plight of women and so forth, women and children, of course, yes.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for that, Lesleyann. It certainly sounds like you've been doing great work, and particularly at CSW and also in East London. And wonderful that the Premier came out to actually support as well. Ohaila, coming to you now, particularly in the frame of what's currently coming out of Gaza, and of course the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and in the wake of the terrible, horrific destruction we've just witnessed at Al-Shifa Hospital and its surrounds. And with Israel claiming this as a victory, talking about Hamas terrorists, and yet we've seen women and children shot at point blank range, buried under the rubble, scavenging for food and clean water, etc. Can you now give us a little bit of the actual context on the ground?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and it's really a difficult question to give a specific answer, because it's a catastrophic, we can say. I mean,
Mm,
because it's very difficult for any person who live in Gaza under this circumstances, and the situation is really, really bad, very, very bad. So women are suffering from many discrimination, let's say, from starving, don't have food, they lost their families, they lost their homes, everything. They lost everything, and the pain is very, very, I mean, very, very, very strong. And we keep listening to the news and listening to fake news all the time, and no one can show the reality on the ground. And in my work, we running a helpline, and during this war, we give our services that during the emergency, and we hear a lot of voices from women, from children, from men, and we know exactly what's going on the ground. So I mean, what we saw on the news and what we hear is not the reality on the ground, and all the false news that running all the time, that doesn't give the reality. So I think, sorry, I think this unclear information make people confused, and they didn't know the truth. So, I think mainly social media, that normal people, I mean, like people who are not professional in media, they posting what really going on the ground. And we can see also that not only, I mean, human being are affected. If we look to other part, I mean, the land is the weapon that they use, the damage that they make to the land, to the plants, to the animals, to everyone there. We didn't we didn't hear any, like, solidarity from people who are defense for instance, environment, or pets' rights. And sorry, and the solidarity of women. I mean, we are very much appreciated, but it's not enough, because we need to influence on governments to stop this war and to stop this genocide. And the power is on with the people who having the decision.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
that's right. So
yeah.
we're going to hold that thought. We really need to unpack this, why that solidarity hasn't been sufficient to perhaps persuade the most important supporters in terms of states and governments, the most important supporters of this genocide, why those women's voices have largely been silent in those countries. But we need to go to a quick ad break. We need to pay the bills. We are, after all, a community station. So please stay with us while we go to a quick ad break.
You are listening to Salam Media live from our headquarters in South Africa. This is Salam Media, keeping you company this Ramadan.
Alhamdulillah, Muslims in South Africa finally have access to a fully Sharia-compliant emergency medical takaful and wellness product. As an industry first, Emergivac Sharia offers up to 575,000 Rand emergency medical cover at a private hospital for you and your family. Plus, you receive 24-hour access to private ambulance evacuation, 24-hour armed response services, roadside home, and even appliance assistance services. Emergivac Sharia offers you and your family priceless emergency medical cover at a fraction of the cost of traditional private healthcare. Simply download the Emergivac app and register online or SMS Sharia to 40777. Emergivac Sharia, for when serious emergencies require seriously fast response.
Fulfill your zakat conveniently with Ashraful Aid. This Ramadan, let's make your zakat count. Ashraful Aid's zakat distribution is carefully overseen by external boards which ensures transparency and trust. Make a difference to those who really need it. Join us today to spread hope and compassion to those who need it most. Visit our website at www.ashrafulaid.org.
Dad, these Frymax chips are so tasty.
Wow, that really takes me back. My dad bought me a Frymax chips every day after school. They were my favorite when I was your age as well. Quality is at the very heart of what we do, and that's why we ensure that every Frymax packet is filled with the beautiful goodness and flavor-packed taste that you've come to expect from us since 1982. Frymax, from generation to generation.
Abu Huraira narrated that he heard the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, say, "In black seed there is a healing for every disease except death." This Ramadan, experience the health benefits of this ancient blessed seed by using the Tib Black Seed range. Black seed assists the body to boost immunity, regulate blood sugar levels, reduce inflammation, and act as a potent antioxidant. Experience a holistic approach to health by introducing the Tib Black Seed range into your Ramadan routine. Available in capsules, pure cold-pressed oil, and a vapor rub. Trust Tib Health Sciences for quality black seed products. For more information, visit blackseed.co.za. Available at leading pharmacies.
Salam Media, your spiritual companion.
Emergivac Sharia, South Africa's first and only fully Sharia-compliant family medical takaful and wellness product, wishes all listeners Ramadan Kareem. Download the Emergivac app today and get free immediate access to the Emergivac Sharia collection of du'as, hadith, Quran, and much more. Welcome back once again, Lesleyann Foster and Ohaila Shomar. Ohaila was talking before we went to the ad break about the large amount of fake news, of disinformation that is currently in the public domain, particularly from the Israeli occupying regime, and also saying that there's a need for more solidarity. Now, the question I'd like to put to you both, and you can either or both choose to answer it, is why there has been, I think, relatively a deafening silence from the usual suspects when it comes to women's issues, the sort of Western liberal feminists. Is this an issue of race, of faith, of just not seeing the humanity of Palestinian women and children? What is the reason that so many of these organizations, particularly in light of International Women's Day last month, have been so quiet on the issue of their Palestinian sisters?
Well, I'll tell you a little story. I was in Germany 10 days ago, and we had 2 days of a civil society meeting. And on the third day, the German NGOs joined us. And there was a woman sitting next to me, and we got to know each other, spoke a little bit about the meeting, listened to presentations. And after a while, I turned to her and I said to her, how are you coping? What is your response to the fact that Germany has taken such a strong support of Israel in spite of what's happening, the genocide that's happening? Mm-hmm. And the woman started to stutter. She's a youngish woman, probably in a mid to late 30s. And she stuttered and said, no, I don't have anything to say about that. And then she immediately packed up her books and left after about 1.5 hours in the meeting, and she never returned again. So that is a demonstration for me about how the governments in Europe have gagged the feminists. What I do know is that there's been quite a lot of solidarity from some of the feminist groups. A lot of the Western feminist groups, in fact, but only around sexual violence. And the reason for that is that the government has prohibited the use of certain language and words, and genocide being one of them. So they're not allowed to say it, it's illegal. Not only have they done that in their own countries, but they have communicated that. They've held Zoom meetings with us to inform us that of all the things we're not allowed to do, who we're not allowed to have contact with, and that's because we are recipients of funding, donor funding from some of these organizations. And I've been really, really shocked that even some of the most progressive donor agencies have got these clauses in their donor agreements now, and we've just had to sign some of the new ones. And I believe you me, I hesitated like crazy before signing them because I was so struck by them saying that you cannot do, the following. And they named groups, they named individuals. But what I realized was that their governments made it compulsory for them to include that in what they were saying. But I don't know if you saw the march over the weekend in London.
I
It was
did, yes.
very, very, very well supported, and it's women and men in that. But we have to understand that part of it, please let me say this, part of it is the gagging of the governments. The other
Right.
part is the points that you made, that there is an element of racism, there is an element of religious intolerance in the silence that comes not only from the women. We must be clear about this. It's not only the women, it's not
Yes.
just the feminists, but the communities as a whole. And if you see the shift in Europe now towards these nationalist, governments, and that's been a whole wave across, and their whole focus is on exclusion and looking at a very incestuous way of ruling, looking at inside and protecting only their own. All of this has an impact. So at a geopolitical level, and we have to talk about geopolitics,
We
because
do.
the response to Ukraine was markedly different as the
It was
response to
indeed.
Palestine. Yeah.
It was
And
indeed.
then, yes, there's a
Sorry, go ahead.
big difference in that, and we need to recognize that there is this, this growing wave of nationalistic, kind of views that are coming out of several countries now, and it doesn't augur well for us. There's been a serious breakdown of the multilateral systems. I'm talking about the United Nations and so forth. That even though some of it is positive, a lot of it is negative, and they are dependent on funding from these very countries. So they too are being gagged to a large extent.
Absolutely. And I think you're very right. The geopolitics do need to be considered, as well as, the gagging of individual governments. Ohaila, what has been your experience in this regard?
Yeah, I agree, totally agree with what my sister Leslie said. I mean, because it's the same. I mean, in Palestine also, for the organization who are women organization who are active in Palestine, there is a lot of political view from the donors and how they driving the fund without mentioning what's going on, and they like observing us very all the time, what we post in our website, if we sign on a petition. I mean, they are watching us all the time, not to
Yes.
say anything about the aggressor, and about the occupation, about the genocide. So it's really difficult. And I personally, I'm a very active woman in different network and different international groups. Unfortunately, I didn't hear from those group any any appeal or any petition, or only on the personal level. But as a network, the only network that supporting me a lot and supporting the Palestinian case, it's the humanitarian feminist fund. Any other network that I'm part of it, we try to write like some articles. When I put my input in these articles, they refuse to publish this, because when they presenting the case, they try to say like a Palestinian woman killed. Who killed them? I mean, how they killed? They died. How they died? I mean,
They're
they try not,
murdered.
yeah, they murdered. And also when we talk about the rape cases, the last week, I mean, what happened on Shifa, in Shifa hospital, can't imagine. I mean, it's totally a genocide. As South Africa present all the evidence to the court, and they still, I mean, many people, they don't believe that, and they follow their political, I mean, agenda in their countries, and they can't stop in front of these agenda.
And it's really terrible to hear that you're so heavily surveilled, though not surprising, of course, in Palestine, but also that, you know, that so many people appear to be gagged or just not willing to discuss this issue, especially given the relative willingness to discuss, you know, gender-based violence, as Lesleyann mentioned earlier. The rapes, for example, at Al-Shifa Hospital, the rapes of detainees in Palestine generally, you know, including in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, that has not made the headlines in the same way as the alleged and now debunked stories of the rapes, supposedly, that happened on October 7th, which, you know, the New York Times ran huge headlines about that, as did other mainstream media. And those stories have now been debunked. But the sexual violence and just generally the violence against Palestinian women does not seem to be making the same kind of headlines anywhere in the world. And it just shows up the really bad double standards in this. So my last and final question to you both, because we don't have much more time and we need to wrap up soon, is I know there's been solidarity in the global South, as Lesleyann has outlined for us. But what more could women anywhere, but particularly in those countries that don't have the kind of gags we've been speaking about, countries like South Africa, what more could women and women's organizations be doing in solidarity with the Palestinian cause? And I'm going to ask you first, Ohaila, as a Palestinian woman yourself, what would you like to see us do?
I think to continue in the same way, because we need to continue our, I mean, struggle or fight. I don't know how to, or solidarity, but we need to continue in this way, because by the end we will win, and I believe on that. So if we can have more women with us, if we can do, I mean, regular activity, as Lesleyann mentioned, I mean, every week, every day, this is can do something. I mean, and the things will be changed. And also to tell the truth, because I mean, all what we hear till now, it's a fake news, and government take action immediately on fake news, as they did with the UNRWA. So we need to tell the truth. This is the most important need, I think, to tell the truth and to have more support from all women in over the world, because women have power and we can make a change. This is what I believe.
Thank you so much for that, Ohaila. I hope listeners are taking note, viewers are taking note. Counter the fake news, counter the misinformation and disinformation, and continue to speak up about the ongoing atrocities against Palestinian women and children. Lesleyann, over to you. Your final thoughts.
Thanks. I think showing solidarity is absolutely critical. We can't sit on the sidelines. We need to be in the eye of the storm, as it were, and we need to be putting pressure on our government and supporting. In South Africa, we're supporting our government's initiatives, very proud of what they're doing. But I also think that we need to show solidarity in practical ways by supporting humanitarian aid, by giving whatever we can to support the women and children in the hope that that aid reaches them. There's still a problem around Israel completely refusing to allow the aid to go in. And then being able to share all the information on the atrocities that are being perpetrated on a daily basis. It is important that people know. In our organization, we're also holding workshops for women to understand the struggle and why we support it, so that there's greater solidarity for the struggle of Palestinian women and children. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you both very much for being with us this morning. We really appreciate your time. We only wish we had more time to continue speaking about this, but you've heard it from both our guests, dear listeners and viewers. Continue to show solidarity, help in whatever way we can, whether that is in giving aid, whether that is in speaking up, whether that is in countering the misinformation and disinformation that is so prevalent and the propaganda that is put out there. But let us continue to stand by our sisters and the children in Gaza, particularly where the situation is currently dire, but also throughout Palestine, which has been undergoing ethnic cleansing for decades now. And the people who bear the brunt of that, as in all wars, are, of course, the women and the children. So let us stand in solidarity with them. Once again, thank you both to my wonderful guests, Ohaila Shomar and Lesleyann Foster. This has been a very enlightening conversation, and we wish you both the best in the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Isha.
And with that, we go to an ad break and then on to our next guest.